All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for attending. My name is Patrick, and I am the director of the Torchlight Campus Policy Center. And for the purposes of this debate, I will also be the moderator. I want to take a second also to introduce, the other members of the Torchlight executive team. And those are Shanna Cohen, Chloe Goodwin, and Jalen Darling, who should be joining us shortly. So Shanna and Jalen are going to be assigned, as per a coin flip, they've been designated to serve as the party contacts, Jalen for Amplify, and Shanna for Progress. And due to another coin flip, for the opening statements, Amplify has been chosen to go first, and we're going to alternate the questions after then. As being the moderator of this debate, there are some rules of decorum that we have established, and those have been agreed to by both parties. And if they're violated, then I will remove anybody that needs to be removed, and that goes for people viewing as well. All right, let me get the questions were decided by the Torchlight Campus Policy Center's executive board. We deliberated them yesterday and approved them today. And nobody else is aware of the questions except for the board, of course, and the person in Torchlight who is taking the minutes for this event. Shayna's making me aware that I might have said something in reverse, and that happens often. Sorry. Can you correct me, Shayna?
The party contacts that you assigned with the coin flip. What were
Oh,
you
yes.
thinking?
I'm so sorry. Yes. That was Jalen for Progress and Shayna for Amplify, right?
Yes, yes.
That's correct. My bad. Okay, perfect. All right. So the Torchlight Campus Policy Center, first of all, is a nonpartisan think tank here at FSU. It was founded in 2019 in the fall. And since founding it, I've been joined by over 40 super talented students that I am very, very lucky to count on each and every single one of them to produce the amazing work that they do. And this is our very first debate that we're hosting, first of many, hopefully. And I'm very happy to be joined by all of you here. I'm going to admit some more people from the waiting room real quick, and then we can be on our way. All right, to go over the rules just a little bit, each party is going to have both an opening and a closing statement, and each party will have 2 minutes to answer each question, with the moderator, myself, alternating between which party goes first. Within the debate rules, which are available on our website, there is a section on the rules of decorum, and they were agreed to prior to the debate. And we expect the event to run for approximately 90 minutes. So through selecting the questions, the goal of the questions was to give each voter the most useful, factual, and holistic view of the stances, accomplishments, and plans for both parties. Questions, therefore, were designed to find out each party's overall plan, specific actions, and past experiences in addressing major concerns of the student body, such as the experience of various identity groups, the impact of COVID-19, so on. The questions were written, organized, and selected by the Torchlight Board of Directors with some input from members of the student body via an anonymous Qualtrics form. And no one outside the Board of Directors and the assigned note taker has seen them prior to the debate. And so with the coin flip determining that Amplify is going to go first for the opening statements, Ms. Mouget, you are now recognized for your opening statement.
Good evening, and thank you for Torchlight for inviting us to debate. My name is Madison Mouget, and I proudly serve as the chair of the Amplify movement. You know, I spent many years believing that this university is one of the best in the nation. In many ways, it is. However, the more I dive into the systematic issues that the student body faces, the more I understand how much more work needs to be done. I started my journey in the Amplify movement as a wide-eyed underclassman, inspired and excited to be surrounded by so many passionate individuals. Our current executive board did not take these positions because we thought it would be fun, because we wanted a name tag, or because we thought it would be easy. We took these positions because we saw both huge success and shortcomings that we wanted to fix. Following unprecedented student engagement, our Amplify executive branch created a task force within the Division of Student Affairs for the Hispanic, Latinx, Jewish communities with a Pride Task Force on the horizon. I thank those before me for their hard work, dedication, and drive to build this movement, but I'll be the first one to say that our family's motto got blurred along the way. Instead of just moving on, we took these faults head on and went straight to work. When we gained word of statements made by a Senate president and previous Amplify member that wronged our LGBTQ+, Black, Brown, and other communities, we immediately came together to make a statement, and I picked up the phone to personally request their resignation. When we witnessed a Senate president and previous Amplify member make statements that hurt our Jewish community, Amplify senators took the initiative and prioritized fighting anti-Semitism with Resolution 59. I clearly remember in our first executive board meeting when Deputy Campaign Manager Carlos Rodriguez said, "I want us to slate people because we believe they are the right candidate, not because we just want to fill the slate." And Carlos, my friend, that statement has stayed with me from that day forward. Shifting our vision and recognizing the lived experiences of our peers is just step one. We have already made plans for our elected candidates to attend NCBI training after elections and participate in regular meetings with our candidate coordinator to reflect their personal positions. This is just one of the many revamps you will see in this new movement, your new movement, made up of diverse advocates who will work tirelessly to make sure that your voice is heard and amplified. Although it's impossible for 3 individuals to represent the entire party, I'm thrilled to introduce our 3 candidates who will be speaking this evening. Jason Randall is a master's student studying information technology and currently serves as the chair of our TAC committee and Senate. Jason is passionately advocates for the access to mental health resources, the needs of graduate students, and the equal and equitable treatment of all students. Danielle Rivera is a sophomore studying political science and anthropology. He served on campus recreation board and is currently running for the student senate. Danielle will continue amplifying the voices of Latinx and Hispanic community. Sasha Martin is a senior studying social work and currently serves as the chair of the Student Life and Academic Affairs Committee and Senate. She's running for her second term and wants to continue advocating for the accurate representation of FSU agencies and women in leadership positions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Bouget. And now I will recognize Mr. Theater.
Hello, everyone, and thank you. Torchlight, my name is Miles Theater. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm a 4th-year international affairs major here at Florida State. Over the summer, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Tallahassee and Florida State community faced a reckoning, much like the United States, with the wounds of systemic racism and effects of police brutality in our faces. While many students were experiencing this reality at home, I was here in Tallahassee. As a Black man living here, more times than once, I feared for my safety. A few days after George Floyd was murdered, I stood on top of Pensacola Street garage as the sun set and cried to my parents over the phone. I said to them, "I've watched people like me die since I was a child," thinking of Trayvon Martin. The anxiety I had that came from seeing Black people die by state-sanctioned violence had caught up with me. I felt a renewed sense of commitment to the struggles of the civil rights era. People like my great-grandfather, Moses White, inspired me to fight in this new civil rights era, a renewed civil rights era. The work done involving controversial namings on FSU's campus is a minimal and incremental step to creating progress throughout FSU and our community. Removing the Epps statue was not the end-all be-all, but it is a start. Progress FSU is filled with students committed to supporting all students equitably. We are activists, advocates, Greek-affiliated members, and concerned students. We are not identity-based like our opponents, but we are community-based. We have fought and will continue to fight for those students that vote in SGA elections, but also those that don't. Progress seeks to empower students who have been told they are not blank enough to participate in student government. So why did I join Progress? Progress is the only party with specific actionable platform points for every corner of student life at FSU. We do not just use fluffy language, we back it up. Progress FSU has not only publicly condemned the actions of Jack Denton, the now infamous former Amplify movement vice chair and Senate president. We are the only party to sign on to the transgender housing policy initiative by Gender Odyssey. Progress is the only party with a platform to address the economic issues faced by all students in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're the only party to select our candidates in our executive board by popular vote. Progress is founded on the radical idea that every vote counts. I've had many friends involved in student government at FSU, but this is the first time I myself have gotten involved. I'm genuinely hopeful and excited for the change that Progress FSU seeks to enact here at Florida State. You'll hear from 3 progressive candidates tonight: Francesca Edward, Chance Preche, and Vanessa Ramos. They embody the very best of our university, and I know they share a collective belief that Florida State wants progress now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fiacher. That concludes the opening statements for both parties, and we will now begin with the questions. The first question is about student involvement here at FSU regarding the SGA elections. In the fall 2019 student government election, less than 10% of the student body voted. First, why should students vote in student government? And then why should they vote for you and your party specifically? The first party to go is going to be Amplify.
Thank you for that question. I think it's really important. My colleagues and I believe, as I'm sure every single member of any party here at FSU, that the most sacred right we have as students is to be able to vote for our elected representatives. That for every $12 on every single credit and every single tuition, that the $13 million that SGA puts together and budgets every single year, that they have a chance to be part of that, that their voice matters, that every single population in our student body, every identity from every walk of life gets to have a say in that. 3 weeks ago, we passed a budget, and I stood there in about 8 different budget meetings and made sure that everybody had their voice heard. That's what we're gonna do. Increase advertisement of SGA elections on social media, in person, and through face-to-face communication, socially distanced, and over text and different messages. We think it's absolutely essential to make sure that everybody has their voice heard, everybody has their chance to vote, and everybody knows that it is important to be involved.
I think it's also important to note that there has been a fire sparked within the student body after the events that happened in the summer. And I feel like people really want to have a say in who their elected officials are this upcoming term. And I think that this is why people should go out and vote for their elected officials to feel like they're being accurately represented. And I feel like the Amplify movement does a great job at selecting their slate, trying to have so many people from diverse communities, whether that be diverse within color, socioeconomic status, or walks of life. Those are all what we're trying to best serve for the community and show people that they're being accurately represented.
I think that now more than ever, students want to vote for inclusivity, diversity, and advocacy for minority students like myself. And to me, that's what Amplify is. I wish to inspire other students to make a change, and that's why I believe that students should vote to make a change, because like I said, now that more than ever, we are seeing what it's like to be belittled for your race, and we want to influence policies and promote equity of treatment on campus.
All right, thank you. And the next party to go is going to be Progress.
So first of all, I'd like to really address that kind of one of the last points you guys talked about. You guys mentioned that Amplify selects their candidates. That's actually something that I don't think really kind of vibes in the sort of democratic election process you guys hope to have for SGA. Progress, what I'm proud of and why I'm a part of Progress is because our executive board doesn't select the candidates, doesn't select the slate. Our executive board is elected by us, elected by the people. And then we as a party choose who goes on our slate. And then Jason, you talked about the importance of elections and you talked about the importance of kind of having every student vote, but you didn't really talk about why people don't vote. Amplify has been in power in all branches of SGA for the past 2 years. But I ask each and every one of you students listening today, can you actually tell me something that SGA, more specifically Amplify, has done for you to make your life better as a student? I can't. I personally can't do that. I think that I like that Progress doesn't determine their slates in back rooms and back deals, and Progress doesn't determine their executive board in back rooms and back deals. Progress consists of servant leaders, unlike Amplify that consists of traditional leaders who try to use their positions in order to gain power or privilege or to put another thing on their resume. As servant leaders, Progress wants to serve you and wants to share.
Mr. Prochet, while I appreciate looking out for making sure that these processes are democratic, I'm going to find that out of decorum. I need you to stick to facts, and please continue your train of thought and your argument in a way that does not borderline on attacks of character. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Please unmute.
Well, I'll go back to why I think that people should vote Progress. People should vote Progress because many people of color, especially queer people of color, have expressed righteous anger over the continued dismissal by student government and the lack of representation in student government. And who currently has the most senators in student government? Amplify. People are tired of it. People don't want fluff about Black Lives Matter. People want to actually be heard. They want to know that their life actually matters. And Progress, like Miles said, we're the only party who actually condemned the reinstatement of Jack Denton. Why couldn't you guys have done that? That's just a simple gesture that would have made myself and other POCs on this campus feel better.
All right, thank you, Mr. Prochet. All right, we're going to continue to our next question, and that is going to be on the topic of student finances. So every student here at FSU pays about $12.86 in activities and service fees per credit hour to be allocated by SGA. And the majority of interactions that RSOs have with SGA is through applying to access those funds. So what material actions will your party take to ensure that students are able to both get the most get the most out of their money and have the fairest process of applying for funding? Progress is going to go first.
You were breaking up. Can you repeat the question again, please?
I'm so sorry. My bad. So every student at Florida State pays about $12.86 in A&S fees per credit hour to be allocated by SGA. Okay. Sorry. Is that better? Can you hear that?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, awesome.
So one of the main campaign points we're thinking of.
Sorry. I want to reiterate the whole question so that she can hear. The majority of interactions that RSOs have with student government is applying to access those funds. So what material actions is your party going to take to ensure that students are able to both get the most out of their money and have the fairest process of applying for funding? And 2 minutes.
Okay, so one thing that Progress is big on is the student well-being. We are going to come up with a COVID-19 relief funding that will focus on funding for rent relief, and SGA can, with the help of SGA can offer rent relief during the pandemic by creating a line item fund which sets up a pool of money in which students can receive funds. A committee will be set up to review those applications for the rent relief funds, and we also want to raise the wages for OPS wage workers as well. We also want to raise wages for OPS wage workers, and in the short term, SGA could help increase the wages for hazard pay for OPS workers who are on the front lines of handling the pandemic at FSU. We find that to be extremely important.
And also, since I am running for a Senate seat for the College of Communication and Communication Information, I did want to talk about a point that I thought would be something of value. So SGA currently gives $12.50 of a student's tuition money towards SGA. And when I looked at the budget, I saw that SGA had allocated $280,000 towards homecoming. Homecoming this year is basically non-existent for students. So I think that when I sent out a survey to a lot of the students in the College of Communication and Information, and a lot of that talked about a lack of funding for a lot of just basic services, basic equipment. FSU profits off of these students, especially through things like Seminole Productions, where students without any sort of pay are able to produce for FSU sports teams. So I believe that part of this budget should be used to kind of give back to the FSU students, maybe purchase new equipment for students to use for various projects, whether that's working for Seminole Productions or if that's in a different college.
All right, and that is 2 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Prochet. All right, the next set of questions are going to be about the internal party structure. I'm going to preface this with one statement, and then I have a
I did
specific.
not get a chance to respond.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm so sorry. Wait a minute. Oh, my bad. I'm so sorry. And then Amplify, please, for the same question. My bad.
Thank you. So in Senate, my name is not necessarily Senator Randall, it's Chair Randall. I chair the Resources for Travel Allocation Committee, one of 2 funding boards in student government, and the only person in at least a year to put forward a comprehensive advertising effort. And if you want to see it, go ahead, check out the committee minutes of my committee, because we have task items for every single one of them. I'd love to have Torchlight go and fact check that, because that is true. We are working to advertise to multiple student organizations. RTAC currently sees about 60 student organizations, which is just about 8% of the 750 RSOs at Florida State University. And that's not right. That's not right at all. At the bare minimum, let's be shooting for 10. Let's shoot for 75 organizations and try and get there. And the important thing for you to know, and the question was funding boards and funding. How do RSOs get funding better? So that first point is advertising. We are directly reaching out to RSOs. Any RSO in the past 5 years, I've pulled historical data to make sure that they know about this entity, because the chances are that their leadership at least has an idea of what we are. We're also reaching out to underprivileged and underutilized RSOs, working directly with SOAR Board. So our newest and most amazing student organizations have the opportunities they need to succeed and be successful, because that is what it's all about. RSOs defined my undergraduate experience for 3 years, and I know they're defining graduate and undergraduate experiences across the university. So I'm committed to making sure that happens, at least from an advertising standpoint. Secondly, we need to talk about the process. It's about an 8-step process to make this happen. A lot of it is because of bureaucracy with the administration. Some of it really doesn't need to happen. So I'm actively working as RTAC chair to try and pare down some of this bureaucracy. And in addition to that, when we talk about the bare minimum.
I am sorry, Senator, but you are over time.
I think you're muted, Patrick.
All right. Thanks. Sorry about that. And so now we're going to go to a question about the internal party structures. I'm going to preface this with one statement, and then I have one question specifically for each party, and then Amplify is going to go first. So within student government, there have been some concerns surrounding the structure and impact that political parties have had on the culture, the well-being, and the effectiveness of SGA. So specifically for Amplify, given the overwhelming concerns from the student body surrounding your former party leadership, how will your party acknowledge, learn, and improve from the past to be the best representatives of the student body possible? And you have 2 minutes.
I think what we're focusing on most especially this year is, having new people, new ideas, just everything that's able to really represent what happened during the summer, but also the accomplishments that we've been able to do as well as a body. Kind of talking about the town halls that we've been able to do as Amplify, being able to really acknowledge what has happened, but also learn from it and grow from it.
Excellent point, Chair Martin. And I want to go off of that for a little bit. So we're talking about holding Amplify accountable for their actions of the past. And Senator Mouget talked about that in her opening statement, how, when members of our party former members of our party decided that they didn't want, they wanted to say statements that were not in alignment with our values or had hateful ideology in them, we immediately said, we're not going to have that. Respectfully, we ask you to reconsider whether you would be best serving the student body in your current position, and respectfully ask that you not serve in our party anymore. And in addition to that, I want you to hold us accountable for what we do going forward. We have a bold agenda that you're going to hear about tonight, spanning everything, topics that were talked about this summer, from, victimization to anti-Semitism to combating racism. And I want you to ask us questions about it. And most importantly, I want you to hold us accountable. And the reason why, and how we're going to do that personally is we're going to make sure that our own internal staff are doing it via our candidate coordinator, and that when it comes to talking with our constituents and making sure that our constituents know where Amplify stands and know how our senators are going to act, that they go ahead and meet with their college leadership councils as part of their legislatively mandated duty.
All right, thank you. And now the representatives from Progress are going to respond to this one. So Progress FSU is a new political party on campus, which was founded as an openly progressive organization. And this signifies a change from the recent history of campus political parties not having national political leanings. So given a divided student body, how is your party going to work to improve the well-being of all students on campus, regardless of their political ideologies? And you have 2 minutes to respond.
May you please repeat the last part? I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah. So given a divided student body, how is your party going to work to improve the well-being of all students on campus, regardless of their political ideologies?
Well, I could start by saying that progress means treating all students with respect. And in terms of respect, we could also go about how we select the people who are running with us. We are the first and only SGA party to have our members vote on elected members. We also don't have our previous e-board selecting our new e-board, resulting in us wasting people's times. Instead of picking members from underrepresented communities to run for positions like other parties have done in the past, we continue to work with different communities and advocate for this communities. And we have ensured that our platform is written by a group of people who represent different parts of campus. We worked with these communities and actually brought communities in. And it wasn't just written by a few members, it was a whole process. We weren't trying to, falsely amplify voices on campus. We were making changes and hearing people's stories. And I think that's an important part of respecting people, respecting our students, and ensuring that they are speaking up for themselves instead of us attempting to amplify for them.
And to add on to what Francesco said, our platform is not partisan, so we're able to relate to other students. Just because we have progressive ideals does not mean that our platform is particularly partisan. We have members that are from different political beliefs, but yet we can come together and we know that we want to affirm students, that we want to make sure that we value their opinions and their existence, and we want to make sure that they are heard. So I just want to let it be known that our platform is not partisan. It's not leaning one way. Anybody from any political party can be and join our party, and they'll probably agree with some of the things that we have. And if they don't, that's fine as well. But I just want to stress that yes, we are a progressive party, but our platform is not political leaning and it's not partisan whatsoever.
Okay,
Can I say something or?
You're over 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So no, but thank you. All right. So we're going to then go into 4 identity-based questions. So each question is going to address the unique experience of a particular identity here at Florida State University. For each question, we're going to highlight some specific issues that community is currently facing on campus. The actions done by student government are often seen as strictly performative. And so beyond merely denouncing that discrimination, what concrete actions is your party going to take to improve the well-being of that impacted community? And we're going to begin regarding students of color. Some recent actions of the student body include the support for the establishment of of President Thrasher's anti-racism task force, and student-driven efforts to rename FSU buildings connected to the oppression of Black and Brown students. Beyond merely denouncing racism, what concrete actions is your party going to take to address the impact that institutional racism has on students of color? And Progress goes first.
That's a great question, Patrick. Well, first of all, I'm actually going to talk about an event we're hosting tomorrow. Tomorrow, we actually have Tallahassee Community Conversations with community leaders. We're going to have the City Commissioner-elect, Jack Porter, the President of the Tallahassee NAACP, Adner Marcelin, the Vice President of the Democratic Club of North Florida, Teresa Wells, and the aide to Senator Commissioner Jeremy Matlow, Ryan Ray. So we've already, even before we've elected anyone into Senate, we've already started having these conversations with the community. We've already started reaching out to the community because we realize that advocacy doesn't start and stop in the Senate or in SGA. Advocacy starts and stops with us. It starts and stops with what we do outside of the Senate. And other than that, you can actually look at our kind of campaign platforms to see what we're doing for racial and ethnic advocacy. As far as the Black community, we're going to establish a formal FAMU FSU SGA partnership. We're going to increase outreach to Black students in local high schools to provide them workshops and information on applying to college, because we recognize that although education is not a panacea to solving the issue of systemic racism, it is a way to decrease the income gap between Black and white people.
I'm glad you asked this. It is extremely important for me to notice the structural racism on campus, and it's also important for me to ensure that student activism is centered. A lot of people don't really care about student activism, and we need to all notice that. We need to continue to take active reforms the way that active reforms, for example, the way that Progress was created. We don't want to create parties to promise small group of people at the very top of space in SGA. The only way that we could create legitimate change is for all of us to organize, come together, and voice our opinion. Progress is here to be a party that supports you all in this fight. One of the things that we are doing that we are going to be working on for the Black community is partnering with small Black-owned local businesses and providing ample on-campus opportunities to.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to interrupt you because you're at 2 minutes. I'm sorry about that. All right. And the same question goes to Amplify.
I want to emphasize that it's important to start these hard conversations early, because if a conversation is hard, then change is being born. We don't want to wait to give freshmen opportunities to talk about social and racial justice. We want to work with the Inner Residence Hall Council and Freshman Leadership Institute to host a series of thoughtful discussions exclusively for freshmen, hosted in a similar style to the Center for Leadership and Social Change's MLK Dinner Dialogue event. I also want to emphasize that racism can be hidden, and we do not want these candidates to be slated. So within our party, we are doing in-depth interviews. We hope to make sure a candidate is not slated with any hateful ideologies. I would say that past situations were the result of a lack of fluent conversations and training with elected officials. However, our training is going to look a lot different in the 73rd Senate. Moving forward, we hope to have consistent conversations hosted by the executive board with elected candidates, and training in diversity, equity, and inclusion provided by the NCBI.
I would also like to add that also talking about the task force that has been created at the university level, our current vice chair of Amplify is currently serving on it, and he's within that, creating concrete solutions and programs with university administration to better the lives of marginalized groups at FSU. So really going in from what the party is doing, we are able to have influence, able to talk more about it, talk more in depth, and be able to have a change, but in an administrative level, not just within the student body, but how we can change how FSU continues on in the future.
Yeah, and the last point that's really important is when these events happen in the summer, our Amplify executive branch was right up there and hosted town hall with Chief Brown from the FSUPD, ensuring that students had their voices heard and that nobody was left out of the conversation.
I think you're muted, Patrick.
Sorry, once again. All right, thank you so much for that. We're going to go into our next question. and Amplify is going to respond first on this one. So regarding Jewish students, some recent actions of the student body include the support for the establishment of the Jewish Student Life Task Force, and students voicing concerns about the safety of Jewish students, given the impact that anti-Semitism has had on our student senate and our university. And so beyond merely denouncing anti-Semitism, what concrete actions is your party going to take to support Jewish students and respect the Jewish identity? And Amplify is going to go first.
Thank you for that question so much. As a Jewish student myself, I understand the need to combat anti-Semitism and religious discrimination in any form at all times whenever it occurs. Amplify took bold action this summer. With the resolution 59, we were the first ones to put it up and talk about instituting the IRHA definition to address these issues in a way that fosters cultural acceptance and appreciation while maintaining freedom of speech. Shortly after its passing, as you mentioned, the Jewish Task Force was created in the Division of Student Affairs to review student life on campus and develop recommendations. They've already created those recommendations. One of your members and multiple members of the Jewish community are involved that in a student capacity. Some of those things include annual training for students and staff in student affairs and student government association surrounding religious discrimination to prevent anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and other forms of hate speech. In addition to that, we want to expand the university calendar on religious holidays to increase the understanding of lesser known holidays that have real significance to all of our religious communities. In addition to that, as you currently probably know, Student Government Association and Division of Student Affairs is hiring a student equity and inclusion director. And we want to make sure they do that in consultation with many religious groups and different identity groups to ensure that that person is truly for the students and appointed by the students. And finally, and this is very personal to me as well, ensuring that the Jewish Student Union, which was taken out of the Constitution quite a few years ago, is at some point in the next few years put back into the Constitution and put back into statutes to represent Jewish students and combat anti-Semitism on campus.
All right, thank you. And now Progress will respond.
So what we plan to do is we plan to implement bias and sensitivity trainings in order to combat anti-Semitism. We also want to push for more education regarding Jewish students' culture, as well as educate students on anti-Semitism. And we also are going to work with different national groups in order to have speakers come and speak more about the topics and issues, as well as the culture and the biases that are held against these students. And we also want to have an open dialogue with Jewish students on campus in order to understand their experiences on campus so that we're able to, provide more help if they need more help and listen to their problems or what they like in order to better help that group on campus. But also with that said, we want to also enact like comprehensive education on religions, like not even just like Judaism, but also with other religions. And we also, similar to Amplify, we want to further the religious holiday and ensure that teachers do not post exams on religious holidays. And then with that said, we also want to dedicate, we want to make sure that there's more spaces on campus where students can meditate and pray in private so that they're able to do that, as well as expand the dining to be more inclusive for other students' needs.
So some of the things that we want to do is to push for the evaluation of harassment and discrimination policies, as well as diverse programming efforts in relations to the Jewish community. And we also want to implement bias and sensitivity trainings to identify and combat anti-Semitism on campus, and also creating different programs to educate and provide resources and address the history of anti-Semitism and its changing forms. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, and so the next question is going to go to Progress first. So regarding Indigenous students, Some recent actions of the student body include the proposal of an official SGA Land Acknowledgement Act by the Student Senate, and advocacy efforts for the increased education on the identity of the Seminole tribe. So beyond merely denouncing discrimination against Indigenous peoples, what concrete actions will your party take to recognize the identity, culture, as well as lived experiences of Indigenous students on campus? And that's going to go to Progress first.
Can you repeat the end of the question? My internet's kind of.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So what concrete actions is your party going to take to recognize the identity, culture, and lived experiences of Indigenous students on campus?
Well, being an Indigenous student myself, the vetoing of the Land Acknowledgement Act was very upsetting, and I don't even know how to describe it, but it was just very disappointing to experience that, especially during the week of like Indigenous Peoples Day. But with that said, we definitely want to push more, and we want to get the Land Acknowledgement Act back into the Senate so that people vote on it and we pass it this time. But with that said, we also want to provide more education on the Seminole tribe. Like in Progress FSU, we have a Seminole History and Awareness subcommittee, and we are working on like changing the name of the res to not be a misrepresentation anymore. We also want to have more education just on the culture and the people, whether it be the Seminole tribe or other Native American tribes. And we also sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. There's just a lot going on. But if anyone else wants to take.
I think something else we also want to do is to rename things that are misrepresentative of the Seminole tribe. Things like powwow. Like that's absolutely ridiculous. If you have the Seminole tribe of Oklahoma saying that using things like that are misrepresentative of their culture, if you have things like that that aren't really a part of Indigenous culture, then we shouldn't be using that. That's absolutely unacceptable and ridiculous. And something else we're going to try to do is to keep pushing for things like the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Act, because we pushed that through the SGA Senate, but at the same time, the student body president, who is a member of Amplify, was the one who vetoed that.
All right, thank you. And the same question is going to go to Amplify.
Okay, so we call ourselves the Seminoles. We are on their land, but as students, many of us do not know what that even means. The lack of education and awareness of the Seminole tribe is simply unacceptable. The first step to allyship is education. This is something we must instill in our peers from the moment they step on our campus. Building a sense of acknowledgement within our student body is the bare minimum, and so that's where we'll begin. Student leaders in the university should work towards hosting workshops and emphasizing the importance of taking classes revolving around Indigenous nations.
I was in Senate when the resolution was trying to be passed with the land acknowledgement, and I voted yes. But I also think it's important to note that we should have those conversations with the Seminole tribe, what they want to see, what they want to be implemented, so that we can have the most effective land acknowledgement, so that we can be able to have it said within Senate, so we can have it said within any meetings that are possible within DSA or anywhere else as well. So I think that's important to note. And then also education within our party and within anywhere that we are is important to remove offensive, culturally inappropriate ways of talking about the Seminole tribe, being able to possibly have a Senate liaison position that amplifies what the Seminole tribe possibly wants to have. It's all about communication. It's all about seeing what exactly the Miccosukee tribe of Florida wants, what the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma wants, what the Seminole tribe of Florida wants. It's not what we as students want. It's focusing on what the Indigenous people want, because that is who we are representing. We want to see what exactly is that we can make actionable change happen, but we need to have those conversations first.
Okay, thank you. The final identity-based question is regarding LGBTQ plus students. Some recent actions of the student body include advocating for enabling features on Canvas that allow students to select their pronouns and voicing concerns about the safety of LGBTQ plus students, given the impact that homophobia and transphobia has had on our student senate and our university. So beyond merely denouncing homophobia and transphobia, what concrete actions is your party going to take to ensure the well-being of the LGBTQ plus community here on campus? And the first to respond is going to be Amplify.
Well, as we said, we are trying to have an NCBI training with our fall slate. I feel like NCBI trainings is one of the first conversations to be had with students, especially people who may not necessarily know different identities, how to be able to be an ally, promoting green dot trainings, promoting allies and safe zone trainings for all of our slate as well, making sure that they are able to know what resources we have, because ignorance is not an option with so many resources that we have within the Center for Leadership and Social Change. It is easy to be able to fall into patterns that you may have had when you were in high school or middle school, but college is an opportunity to be able to grow from that, to unlearn from that. So our party really is going to emphasize going to those trainings, being able to really talk to people who are of different backgrounds, not hurting people within Senate or campus recreation board by saying something ignorant, and being able to really hop onto a conversation and being able to accurately represent the people, whether that be their constituents in their college or even within Senate, their colleagues. How are you able to best represent everybody without being mean to them?
Yeah, that's a great point, Chair Martin. I also want to talk about some of the initiatives Amplify will be taking on that issue. I'm personally already working with Gender Odyssey to provide gender inclusive housing, hopefully in the coming years, to students, and working on how we can best support multiple communities, especially including the trans community, in my opinion. In addition to that, we want to be sure we're working with the existing resources we have at FSU. So we've got University Health Services, and there's no reason they can't expand their existing offerings to include more gender and sexual health training and people like and physicians. And the last part of that, and regarding health and wellness and things like that, is working with the administration, Alumni Association, FSU Foundation to make sure that the Pride Student Union and people, members of the LGBTQIA asterisk community, have the physical space they need to feel safe, to feel healthy, and to feel welcome.
You're still muted, Patrick.
Sorry. And Progress is now going to answer that question.
Okay, so to answer that question, we are the only party that has fully endorsed the gender inclusive housing units. And some of the initiatives that we will be taking is we want to ensure health services are available for all LGBTQ plus students on campus. We want to increase the inclusivity of healthcare and counseling options on campus for LGBTQ plus students. And we, sorry, and we also, sorry, and we also want to require counseling certification to effectively help members of the LGBTQ plus community. And in addition to hiring more LGBTQ plus experienced counselors and allowing for students to request an LGBTQ plus preference for counseling, because it's important that students have preferences. And we also want to push to have a Pride Center on campus, because it is important that the LGBTQ plus community has proper resources, and a place to utilize these resources must be given to them. And in order to do that, we are going to make sure that we're working with the University Counseling Center and the Oglesby Union and the Victim Advocacy Program to allow for a permanent and official FSU space for the LGBTQ plus community to be established, because everyone on campus needs a space that belongs to them.
And we also recognize the intersectionality of both race and gender and sexuality. So we're also advocating for instructor-led consent training for FSU students. We also want to have free tampon and free pad dispensaries in our gender inclusive bathrooms. And we also want to make pregnancy tests more widely available. And concerning that, we also recognize that POCs queer POCs generally have higher rates of suicide and higher rates of mental illness. So we recognize that we need to utilize our mental illness resources. And we also have Miles, who is on the anti-racism task force, who has also been advocating for gender equality and equality for LGBTQI plus students.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And that's going to conclude those 4 identity-based questions. All right, you guys can hear me okay. All right. And there are, the next 2 questions are going to be about the impact that COVID-19 has had on our student body. With the first question addressing the financial impact, and the second considering the health and well-being of our students. And Progress is going to go first on this first question. So how will your party support students that have and are experiencing varied financial impacts due to the COVID-19 pandemic? And you have 2 minutes.
So as previously stated, we do want to have a COVID-19 funding rent relief program, and SGA can offer the rent relief during the pandemic by creating a line item fund, which will then set up a pool of money in which students can receive the funding, and a committee would be set up to review those applications for the rent relief. And what was the other part of the question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
This part of the question is specifically just about the financial impacts.
Okay, so pertaining to the financial impact, what we want to do is to have the rent.
Are you frozen? We also want to raise wages for OPS workers because we recognize that there are a surplus of funds in SGA that hasn't been utilized. Like I mentioned before, the $280,000 homecoming budget. Homecoming isn't really happening this year, so why can't we reappropriate some of those funds to help the students in Tallahassee that are struggling, to help the people in Tallahassee, the OPS workers who aren't really making enough to make their ends meet, who might lose their homes. We also want to use that to try to subsidize insurance as well, in order to try to provide cheaper insurance for students who may not have access to it.
Lastly, we want to fight for the Tallahassee community that has been affected, not only with the funds that we have to help students, we're also able to help the outer community by, wearing our mask, having money to buy for masks, being able to set up social distancing better, things like that in order to help the community, because we are a large part of the community and we are in their area, because many of us do not live here and we come here. And I feel like a lot of us think that we're in a different place, but really people live here and they're impacted by our decisions and the decisions we make as a university. So it's very important that we provide people the correct PPE so that they can keep themselves safe as well as the community.
I also wanted to point out that 13% of the FSU students come from 13% of our student body comes from the bottom 40% of the income bracket. So I think it is of paramount importance that we do kind of take those surplus funds and help those students, because that's what we're here for in SGA. We're not
chance. Time has elapsed.
Sorry, thank you. All right, and so the same question is going to go to Amplify. And as a gentle reminder, this question is just on one part of COVID, and that's the finance aspect. And the next question that we're going to ask next is going to be on the health and wellness. But first, Amplify for the financial impact of COVID-19.
So the pandemic and the gap. So the gap expands during the pandemic between students that have everything to do what they need to virtually, and the students who were already struggling before and due to the pandemic are put even more back. So therefore, it's important now than ever to outreach to students for involvement and to reach out for allocation and see our priority is offering students resources that they need during these times.
I also think it's important to know that yes, homecoming has so much money that is allocated to them, but it is also such an important event for students of all backgrounds to gather, to be able to have that moment at FSU, to be able to have agencies like HLSU have more of a social standing in a predominantly white institution. And then also thinking about the year ahead of COVID-19 and the financial impacts also. There had to be so many different cuts that happened within the allocation that we have for the next year. So how can we use Senate projects? How can the senators of Amplify be able to give those things like resolution bills made to give different PPE to different organizations to be able to host different events, to be able to be protected during COVID-19? How can money be given and allocated to the food pantry as well? So focusing on those things of how our Senate projects can be able to be used to effectively combat COVID-19.
And lastly, real quick, understanding that there are some legal issues that our peers at UF faced when allocating rent relief. It's important for the Student Senate to take decisive local action here in Tallahassee and in Leon County to empower OGA, Office of Governmental Affairs, to advocate on behalf of students and regarding rent relief and stopping evictions, because that last one's really important to me.
Okay, thank you. All right. And so that concludes the financial aspect of COVID-19. And now we're going to head into the health and wellness aspect. And Amplify is going to go first on this one. So given the varied opinions of the student body on addressing the COVID-19 pandemic, how does your party plan to utilize its platform to promote solutions that are in the best interest of the health of the student body?
Well, we can start with small aspects such as having to change the way that Amplify is having to promote our party to be able to campaign, not having it on campus for the safety of the students. Even though there are many students on campus, we are still doing everything virtually, anything on social media, talking to different people, keeping our mask on. Yes, we do possibly have the opportunity to be able to be on campus and campaign, but we're not doing that because we want to ensure the safety of our students, to be able to make sure that everyone is being safe and socially distant. And then with other aspects of, sorry, I forgot the question. You can go ahead. Anybody else?
With other aspects of COVID-19, we also got to be sure that we're making sure that students have the resources they need to deal with this. There's a lot happening. You've heard mental health professionals say that they really expect this October and December time to see a huge spike in cases of crises and different sort of issues resulting from very real financial issues, the isolation and anything associated with that. So we need to make sure that they have the resources they need to succeed in that. And then lastly, I think for me personally, I'm the Graduate Studies Center and I'm a graduate student myself. I think about GAs and TAs all the time. And we got to be making sure that they have the PPE they need to be able to teach in-person classes. If they're stepping into a classroom without so much as hand sanitizer, something to wipe things down, and a mask, then the university administration is failing them, and SGA must stand up, must step up, no matter what. Graduate students deserve the same rights as everybody else.
And things being virtual and the lack of in-person meetings for organizations can have a negative effect on mental health and bonding. In regards to mental health, we hope to use the new Mental Health Council created by Amplify members to work with the campus community partners to improve access to mental health resources for all students. And Amplify senators have successfully lobbied to FSU Faculty Senate to ensure the addition of confidential campus resources to all syllabi.
Thank you. All right. And then Progress is going to answer the same question on the health and wellness.
May you please repeat the question?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So given the varied opinions of the student body on addressing the COVID-19 pandemic, how does your party plan to utilize this platform to promote solutions that are in the best interest of the health of the student body?
So on a personal level, I could say that this pandemic has definitely affected my mental health. It's increased my anxiety because it's just really hard not being able to see all your friends all the time because of social distancing guidelines, or because you don't want to get COVID, or just because they can't come back to Tallahassee because they had to stay home because their families need them back home because they have to work or take care of siblings. So I think a very underrated and under talked about aspect of the COVID-19 pandemic is the mental health aspect. And as a student senator, I myself, and I know the rest of Progress, would advocate very heavily for greater mental health resources for students who are negatively affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. I honestly, I just think it's absolutely ridiculous that our university hasn't really just put more focus on that, because I know a lot of students aren't really aware of the UCC resources. They aren't aware that right now you can go and talk to a counselor and really kind of talk about, what you're experiencing and really go through the telehealth and telemedicine. It's just something not talked about. And besides kind of raising awareness for these mental health services, I think that as senators, it would be our duty to also provide more funding for them as well.
Okay, so some of the things that we're doing that we plan to do as a party to promote the health and wellness of the FSU student body is by advocating for less expensive and basic insurance for students who are unable to afford the health insurance plans. And healthcare, and we truly believe that healthcare is something that should be accessible and affordable for all students. And we also want to create a reporting system in which students can report issues with the university health system for handling of COVID-19, because students need an official method of reporting so that all students can be safer during this pandemic. A lot of students they're in fear for their lives. And another thing that we have been doing for wellness too is that we have also been hosting different community events. We have been doing events based on wellness and based on wellness for students. And for example,
sorry,
one of
your
the
phone has extinguished. Sorry about that.
okay.
All right, we are at our second to last question of the night, and this is on a very important topic on sexual assaults. So according to the FSU Toolkit on Healthy Relationships, 58% of students would not know how to help someone that was a survivor of sexual assault, with LGBTQ plus students and women more likely to be survivors. So given both the recent changes to the Title IX policy and the overwhelming concerns expressed by survivors who came forward to share their stories at FSU over the summer, how will your party effectively advocate for survivors and educate the student body on this very important issue? And Progress is going to go first.
Well, first of all, we could just go to our campaign platform because we realize. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yeah.
We realize that violence against, well, first of all, sexual assault doesn't have a gender. Violence, just sexual-based violence and power-based violence is an epidemic in this country. It's an epidemic on this campus. And a part of our campaign platform, one of them, is to provide sensitivity training for faculty, because I know personally, even though we're all adults here, faculty still kind of have that sense of authority. They still kind of have that sense of adulthood. You feel like you can go to them. You feel like you could talk to them. And I think having faculty that go through that sensitivity training would be really helpful for survivors of sexual assault.
Another thing that we are going to advocate for as well is to reinstate a 60-day Title IX investigation timeline via a university policy. We want to ensure that every single student who is a victim of sexual assault and harassment gets the justice that they deserve in a timely manner, because a lot of the times, like, you're not ready to go out and tell your story right away. Sometimes it takes time to do it, and we want for every single student to feel comfortable and to tell their story in a timely manner as well.
And even just on a more kind of personal level with Progress, we have an anonymous reporting hotline where people can report things that happen like that. And we're not going to punish them or banish them from the party for reporting. No, we actually actively encourage it, because victims have been silenced. Survivors have been silenced too many times. And we decided that we want to stop that, not just starting in Senate, but starting with ourselves, starting with Progress as a party.
And that, yes, I agree with that. Another thing that we want to do is also to increase the number of emergency posts on campus. In order to, we want to do this in order to increase student safety on campus because more emergency posts need to be available. These posts should be brightly colored with working lights so that students can easily find and access them when they are in a dangerous situation.
Thank you. Time is up.
All right. And now Amplify is going to respond to the same question.
Excellent. I want to briefly touch on Title IX real quick, and I'm going to hand it off to my good friend, Student Life and Academic Affairs Chair Martin. Title IX, it was really gutted by the administration, the federal administration in recent years. And as my peers across the aisle said, there needs to be a lot of work on this. And I want to work on them to fix this. In fact, I want to work with them starting this week or next week when when there's a student conduct meeting about how to improve sexual assault and domestic violence reporting. It's really important that students have their input in that meeting and in that committee and in the rulemaking process. Chair Martin?
Yes, and I think it's also important to talk about how there's been a resolution that was presented within the Student Life and Academic Affairs Committee to increase education within the Victims Advocate Program, giving them resources such as different stickers, just ways so that people can be able to learn more about the Victims Advocate Program, and also being the vice chair of the Survivors Advocacy Ad Hoc, having those meetings with University Housing, with Greek Life, talking about how it is important to be able to have those conversations. I think it's also important to note that not a lot of people know what Title IX is, what they're able to do with the Title IX office as well, with all the changes that have been happening. As well, I know that the Survivors Advocacy Ad Hoc has not met in a while, but trying to really revamp that within this next within the 73rd Senate, and being able to have our voices heard, being able to represent all students as well, is something that's really important. Increasing different collaborations with the survivors group therapy, having people feeling comfortable to really use the resources that they are allocated, being able to talk to different people, whether that be with University Housing. I know as a resident assistant, I have so much training being able to offer. So having everybody being able to really be educated as well.
Thank you. All right. We have reached our very last question of the night, and that is it's going to go to Amplify first, and that is that if a student could spend their entire FSU career, but knowing only one thing about student government, then what would you want that student to know? And that is Amplify first. If a student could spend their entire FSU career knowing only one thing about student government, then what would you want them to know?
I think I would definitely want them to know about how there are Senate projects. We have so much money that is just ready to be in use. RTAC, PAC. So many students are able to have their travels paid for, being able to know where to look on the website to be able to get that money allocated. Different RSOs or agencies are allowed to ask for more money through senators, being able to really use those resources, the ANS fees. I think that's something that a lot of RSOs don't know about, is how they can be able to get more money even if it wasn't allocated within the budget. I know as Student Life and Academic Affairs Chair, there has been so many different bills that have been able to go through my committee, such as money for the professional closet, the food pantry, victims advocacy program. So much money is able to go, around 34,000, and not many students know about that. And if they do, they know about it by the end of the year. And then there is so much money still left over by the end of the year that could have been used for so many different things. And then even within COVID, we're still allowed to allocate that money. How can we be able to better assist the students throughout this tumultuous time? How are we able to increase health and mental health? How are we able to promote reaching out to students who are first generation, who have never been to college before, and being able to come out to Senate and do that.
Student government is advocating for all students, no matter their background, and voicing their concerns. Student government is driven by curiosity and determination. Student government is bringing new ideas to the table by taking on many challenges related to social justice issues and helping students feel safe on campus.
Thank you. All right, and then Progress will now answer. If a student could spend their entire FSU career knowing only one thing about student government, then what would it be?
So I'm going to be completely honest. I am new to this whole entire student senate thing, and I absolutely don't know anything. And I'm okay with that because I'm willing to learn about it. But for me personally, I just want students to know that like student government is supposed to represent you, and they're supposed to listen to you and advocate for you. Like you can list all these different programs and everything, but the main thing I want them to know is that they're supposed to be here for you to make your experience on campus better. And they're supposed to listen to you to make sure that they can do all that they can to help you.
Honestly, I would just say representation matters, because when I reached out to students asking, why aren't you involved with SGA? And the horrible thing about it was that a lot of students said, it doesn't matter. SGA doesn't do anything. It's not effective. And I thought, that's not true. SGA is effective. SGA has a budget of $13 million. Your student body president is on the FSU Board of Trustees, and the student body president also has the potential to be on the FSU Board of Governors. And then I thought to myself, and I realized the reason it doesn't seem like it matters, the reason it seems like SGA is ineffective is because there's not enough representation of marginalized communities. There's not enough people that look like me. There's not enough gay people like me. And that's honestly ridiculous, because as senators, we are supposed to represent the student body. And I know for sure that the entire student body isn't white, isn't straight, isn't cisgender.
You have 30 seconds left on the clock. If any of you would like to continue.
Can you guys hear me? I'm having connection issues. Okay. So the first thing I would want to let anyone know is that we control 13 million of their money, 13 million, and that there is a space for everyone, not just an elite few, because it is also their money. That is an SGA too. It is important for me as a Black woman, as an immigrant Black woman coming from Haiti, to ensure that change is being created. So when spaces aren't provided for me at the table, I make that space for myself, and not just a space for me, but also space for every single woman, every single Black woman who is sometimes not offered a seat at that table, but we could make that table for ourselves and bring different people to sit with us at that table. We need to understand that it is imperative to ensure.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, that's your time. Yeah, sorry about that. All right. Thank you, candidates. Thank you so much. We're going to continue to the closing statements. And since I can only spotlight 9 people at a time, I ran a random number generator to unspotlight one candidate from each party. I'm very sorry about it. You're still in the call. And those are Jason and Chance. Sorry. So I'm going to unspotlight. Sorry. Okay. And then I'm going to re-spotlight Ms. Mouget. Add spotlight. And I'm going to re-spotlight Mr. Feature. Add spotlight. All right. Progress is going to deliver their closing remarks first.
Thank you. So before I get started into my statement, I just want to say that Amplify does not own the Center for Leadership and Social Change or other departments on this campus. The Progress Party has many different involved leaders in different areas of campus, some that aren't even seeking election within the student government. I also want to call out Jason Randall, because it has been brought to my attention that some of our candidates with the Progress Party were also responsible for that change that was created on the RTAC committee, and they feel slighted because of the comments that you have made tonight. Well, as I get started, I want to speak about authenticity. What you have seen tonight is an authentic party. We're dedicated students that will fight for our fellow peers. We're united in a singular vision of Florida State. Despite what some may say, this party and its candidates are not driven by malice for our opponents, but by a belief that Florida State University can be so much more. We want Florida State to be a better place for the generations that come, just like the students honored in our integration statue. Trust is earned. These candidates in Progress FSU have gained my trust. I believe in the transformational power of solidarity, unity, and transparency. Progress is proud of the very backgrounds of the student body that Florida State is made of. We will meet these students where they are, on the front lines of creating change. Instead of just amplifying the voices that already run the conversation, we will also join the underrepresented on the ground. In the midst of my senior year, I think about the change makers that will come after me. I think about the support they need and the home that Progress has created for students at FSU. Our university and our nation are divided. Progress FSU and these candidates will fight for every student, even those that may disagree with us. However, we will not tolerate racism, xenophobia, religious persecution, homophobia, or any other forms of oppression. We will pursue progress in all spheres of student life. This comes with the truth that this work must include the greater Tallahassee community and tackle real-life student issues. The 32304 zip code, which includes parts of FSU's campus, is the poorest in the state of Florida. The community faces rampant food insecurity and profound poverty. The Progress Party is committed to creating significant change to the FSU and Tallahassee communities through partnership both on and off campus, whether that be working to rectify gentrification in the Frenchtown neighborhood or attending local protests such as the one this Saturday at 3 p.m. in front of the Capitol with local organizations such as Tally CAC. Why do we deserve your vote? Progress has already worked with various student groups and local activists. We may not have won any offices yet. However, we have already enacted change on Florida State's campus because progress can't wait. We encourage all students to participate in student government elections this upcoming Tuesday, November 10th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We will also be hosting an event with local Tallahassee officials, including City Commissioner-elect Jack Porter and Tallahassee NAACP President Adner Marcelin tomorrow night at 6 p.m. via Zoom. And you can follow us on.
Thank you. That is 3 minutes. All right. Next, Ms. Mujay is going to deliver her 3-minute closing remark.
What an evening. Folks, this is what it's all about. Passionate leaders coming together, even from opposing sides, to address topics and ways to make Florida State University the best it can be. We could sit here and debate for a year. At the end of the day, our school, community, and nation is hurting. And it is our job, not as opposing political parties, but as a student body to work together. I'm a strong believer that unique and inclusive change is born through disagreements and debate, just like we have heard tonight, and oftentimes just as we have heard within our own movement. Through the past 3 months, they've been an eye-opening experience. I sit here today extremely proud of the work our movement has accomplished and confident in the work we will continue to do. Just last week, as a result of lobbying from Amplify administrators and senators, the Faculty Senate voted to include the Victims Advocacy Program, University Counseling Center, and other resources on all class syllabuses from this day forward. Your Amplify executive branch founded the March to the Polls, added 7 stops to the Safe Connection route, funded the mentor program for undergraduate students led by graduate students, and created a Fallen Heroes ceremony and to honor veterans that you should attend November 16th. They have strengthened the FSU and FAMU SGA relationships by partnering to promote campaigns such as Pledge, TLH, and Communal Push for voter turnout. For the first time in FSU SGA history, your Amplify executive branch has consistently held monthly town halls, one of which featured the FSU Chief of Police and sparked community initiatives regarding police reform. In addition, our Senate candidate's success should not be overlooked. Amplify members currently have legislation on the floor providing vital funds to FSU organization and resources. Money for the Victims Advocacy Program that allows them to better promote their services to victimized members of the student body is sitting on the floor in the Senate. Money to help the food pantry to fight hunger among our peers is also sitting on the floor, waiting to be passed. Funds that, if not passed, will deny the professional clothing closet to students who have to decide between an interview that could open doors for their future, food, or clothing. This is just some of the legislation that will impact students in every community. Amplify members do not fit one mold. We do not think one specific way, and we do not require one specific mindset. With the exception of hateful ideology, we welcome students with different perspectives, backgrounds, and opinions. We do this because out of diverse opinions and difficult conversation comes collaborative action and stronger policy that will positively impact from every corner of campus. My parents are always taught me to never run away from a challenge. Take it head on. We have seen this through the strength of our student body these past few months, and I promise you this, the Amplify movement will not back down when faced with a challenge. Students, friends, peers, the actions you take on election day will determine the kind of school you want FSU to be. For me, I want our leadership to match our student body, strong, determined, and diverse in every aspect. Thank you and good evening.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you both representatives, and thank you all candidates. Before you all leave, I want to pass the attention over to Shanna, who's going to leave us with some helpful information to know for the next couple days.
Thank you, Director Martin. For those of you who don't know, my name is Shanna Cohen. I'm the Director of the Transparency Branch for Torchlight. And in addition to the rest of our amazing board of directors and our entire team, we've been working tirelessly to host this debate, both for the well-being of the student body and for the Student Government Association as a whole. So we're very appreciative of all the members and all the debaters, participants, and party representatives that came out tonight. After this debate, my team is going to be working on producing a summary of the debate, in addition to a voting guide for members of the public to know how to vote on election day, where to go, what's on the ballot. This way they're aware. We will also be providing as much of a comprehensive fact check as we can within the limited time before the election. To access these resources and all other resources for Torchlight, we encourage you to follow us on Instagram at Torchlight Center, go to our website, torchlightcenter.org, and you can contact any of us on our team page. All of our emails are listed publicly. So if you ever have any questions or concerns about our content or how to get involved, we encourage you to reach out. And again, we will be producing content of a summary, a fact check, and a voting guide in leading up to Election Day. So we encourage you to reach out for that. And thank you to everybody who came.
And you can find, oh, sorry. Oh, yes, you can find that all at Torchlight Center on Instagram. So thank you all again so much to the candidates. Thank you for running. To all the participants, thank you for watching, and hopefully thank you for voting. And to the representatives, thank you for your time and attention. I hope everybody has a great night and a great upcoming weekend. Thank you so much once again. And I hope everyone has a great night. Yes, I'll see you out on the polls on November 10th, I believe is elections. Yeah. All right.